Welcome everybody. I'm going to be talking about Milotic, and of course, as always, if you are new here, welcome. There is a very detailed link to Google Sheets down below. I don't know why I phrase it like that. I am apparently an alien who can't speak English, but okay, there is a link to all of these changes in the Google Sheet down below, and you can check out every single Pokemon so far. And one important thing that I want to preface before I talk about anything else is that every single move is buffed or changed for the most part, so those are all very important and might not be apparent right away, you know, if you don't know what you're looking for. So definitely make a use of this this move sheet right here. You can check out all the move changes. That being said, Milotic. I actually was a bit conflicted when buffing Milotic because initially I had them as a 550 base stat total, which is nothing special in this ROM hack. Obviously, that's a good base stat total, don't get me wrong, but in this ROM hack, the overall power levels are very high, so 550 is like very standard, and there's plenty of two-stage 550 base stat total mons. However, I tend to aim for 500 to 525 for, or 535, excuse me, 500 to 535 for most two-stage Pokemon. However, there are exceptions. As always, there's 550s like Tentacruel, Pokemon that either need the base stat total because they're mixed attackers, or that just makes sense to be high base stat total. For example, Camerupt, something like Pokemon like a Bombasnow, Arcanine, those are mons that are 575 two-stage Pokemon. Wailord, Steelix, those are Pokemon that are 600 base stat total two-stage Pokemon. Milotic, so basically right now I believe it's Gyarados, Steelix, Wailord, and now Milotic is joining that party. I think Milotic makes perfect sense to be rivaling Gyarados. I actually was conflicted. Again, I had it planned as 550, excuse me. Then I went up to 575, and then, you know, I was talking to my friends, whatever, and they were insisting, make it 600, make it the same as Gyarados. And my mindset was, it's not a mixed attacker. It does not need that high of a base stat total. It would be kind of too strong if it had 600 base stat total. However, I ended up actually coming to a pretty good stat distribution for it, because there is a lot of competition as a water fairy type in this hack. In fact, I actually listed out all of the other water fairies in this hack. Obviously, I don't want to spoil too many of the new ones, but what I will say is that there were originally only 3: Primarina, Azumarill, and Tapu Fini, and now I have added Milotic, and then there is going to be 2 more in Hellwood, and then 1 in Sinnoh, 2 in Sinnoh, excuse me. Technically 1 in Unova, technically 2 in Unova, and that's about it. So, but the point is, there's plenty. There is 9, all right? There are 9, 10 if you count the pre-evolution that's viable. 10, all right? 10 water fairy types is actually pretty common because, you know, it's a pretty commonly requested type for a lot of these Pokemon that I'll be giving it to, and I think it makes good sense, and it's a cool buff, and it keeps them, because there is still more pure waters. There's still, like, I believe 12 or 13 pure water types, so I still have to stop overlap there. Because there's nothing wrong with pure water type, and I would have no problems keeping Milotic pure water personally, but regardless, water fairy does fit very well. I don't think I need to explain the logic behind that at all. I'm not even going to waste time on it because I want to talk about important stuff. It is a great typing. Yes, you gain a weakness to poison and a neutrality to steel. You lose your steel resist, but otherwise you gain an immunity and you gain some useful resistances to stuff like fighting and dark. So great typing, obviously. So that's super cool. Okay, that's Milotic typing and stats. So stats are significantly better. It has the same HP and speed stat as Gyarados because HP is based a little bit more on size in this hack, and Milotic is fucking huge. It is 20 foot long. Gyarados is also huge, I believe. I mean, obviously we know that, but yeah, 21 feet long. So I wanted 114, and actually they both had 95 HP. So they both have 114 HP now, and they both have 81 speed. You can go check out that Gyarados video, or what I really do recommend is checking out the Google Sheets, and you can see Gyarados for yourself. Gyarados makes less use of the base stat total because it's a mixed attacker. However, it does have a Mega to make up for that, and it has very powerful offensive abilities and other incredible things. So I'm not trying to downplay how great it is, but I will say that Milotic makes better use of the base stat total because it wastes less points on a mixed attack. Not that mixed attackers are a waste necessarily, but if I'm going to make 2 Pokemon at 600, then of course the one with a lower mixed attacking capability would have better stat distribution just by nature. That's just how stats work. However, Milotic does have a usable physical attack stat of base 80, which actually I'll get into why that's actually really good in a little bit. But first, yeah, I just want to mention I did have to remove Marble Scale because those abilities are very overpowered in game. Because obviously in competitive it's cool because you can run a Flame Orb or a Toxic Orb and get that boost, or, you know, switch it in on a move or something. But in game you can just get 2 items. You can essentially get a 50% boost to a stat, for example, speed with Quick Feet, defensive Marble Scale, attack with Guts, etc., for free. And that's fucking overpowered as hell. Obviously, it's technically not for free. You are losing a little bit of HP, but 6% HP per turn is nothing when you can hold an item on top of that as well. Not to mention you could just slap leftovers if you wanted to, and you're basically just having a free 50% attack, but I would rather run something else. Anyways, look, my point is, I'm getting sidetracked, but my point is Marble Scale is no longer an option for the player to use. However, you do have two great new abilities in Serene Grace and Dazzling. Dazzling is very self-explanatory. I think it fits very well. If you read the Dex entries, it talks about just how it has emotions. It becomes emotions as anger and hostility, and it's super beautiful, and its body glows vivid pink, and it calms troubled hearts, and it's the most beautiful Pokemon of all, and it soothes people's minds, and it's an inspiration to artists and all kinds of. It's breathtakingly beautiful, etc. I think Dazzling is very fitting. Obviously, I mean, look at the Pokemon. It's same logic as something like Bruisish, you know, or Bruxish. I don't know why I just said Bruisish, like a fucking loser. So yeah, great HP stat of 114. They also have a buff defense stat, not only just to make up for losing Marble Scale, but also just because of the power levels in attack, they do need more bulk. Not that like base 79 would be bad. 114 HP with 79 defense is very good. But I wanted to make a 600 base stat total eventually to match Gyarados, and so I was like, all right, let's throw it in defense. And then of course a good 106 base special attack stat, and it retains its excellent 125 base for def. So 114, 94, 125 bulk is huge. You also of course have access to reliable recovery with Recover. You have great setup like Calm Mind and Coil. Coil is really nice because despite having a lower attack stat, you do actually get an accuracy boost, which is cool, and also you get Coil a little bit earlier than you'll get Calm Mind. Calm Mind would probably be in the mid 40s. Coil is at level 40 when you evolve. Speaking of evolution, Feebas is a lot better. So Magikarp is by far the weakest Pokemon in Hack, just because of Soul. Like I'm not gonna make Magikarp good. That's cursed as fuck. You could technically use it. You technically could. It's not completely unusable, especially for the early game, but it's pretty shit, and that's how it should be because it's canonically the weakest Pokemon, or at least one of the weakest alongside like shit like Cosmog or whatever. You know, it just cannot attack. It's supposed to be pathetic. Feebas is not actually weak. In fact, the Dex talks about how tenacious and adaptable, which is why Feebas has adaptability. No, naturally, that's not an ability I gave it. That's what it always had. It talks about how tanky Feebas is. It's actually capable of sustaining a lot of hits, and nobody pays attention to it, and it's famous for its shabby appearance, and it lives anywhere, so I figured make it pretty tanky. Also, Milotic has a high speed F stat, so why not give Feebas a good speed F stat as well? Obviously, it's not the greatest Pokemon, especially after level like 30-ish, it'll start to fall off really hard, but it does have two great abilities in Adaptability and Multiscale. Adaptability can be nice. Obviously, you only have 45 special attack, but, Specs Bubble Shot or Specs Brian or Scald, with Adaptability could do some decent damage. Or you could also run a Violite past a certain point. Multiscale is also really good. Again, you have a solid speed stat, solid bulk. It's a usable Pokemon. Okay, you could use it if you wanted to. I would not. I mean, if you're doing a Team Lock Nuzlocke, for example, you could if you had to, but not optimal. But still usable Pokemon and solid for sure. Especially for when you catch it in Paniolo Town, then it's pretty damn good actually. It's not like great or anything, but it's pretty good. So, yeah. Of course, you do have access to priority. As everything in this hack has access to at least one priority move. Usually, it's a stab option, and usually they have several, but at least one for the most part. Maybe a few exceptions, but yeah, all special water types get Bubble Shot, etc. So Milotic has Bubble Shot and Aqua Jet for priority, which is pretty cool. And then, like I was saying, Coil. Coil is cool because you get it earlier, and you can use physical moves. You actually get really good physical moves earlier. Oh, let me actually talk about Serene Grace, because this is the one that people aren't going to fucking know what it does now, because Dazzling is very self-explanatory. Here's what I'll quickly say about Dazzling. Dazzling is a great ability. In this ROM hack, you do have access to infinite use ability capsules, so what you should be doing is swapping between your abilities depending on the situation. So you're running Serene Grace, say 80% of the time, and then the 20% of the time that there's a priority move you need your Milotic to take, you swap on Dazzling for that fight, and then you change it back to Serene Grace afterwards, and it's still a great ability. Obviously, for trainers, Dazzling is also a good ability, but most trainer Milotics that are, for boss fights at least, will have Marble Scale. But Serene Grace is huge, incredible. I'm going to talk about that in a second, because lots of new moves have incredible new additional effects, which are great with Serene Grace. But Dazzling is useful, especially because Fairy no longer resists Bug in this hack. So First Impression is a very powerful, common offensive tool that most physical attackers have access to now, and that can be very threatening to Milotic, even if it's very tanky. Obviously, like a Stab, Ruthless, fucking First Impression is gonna deal a shitload of damage to Milotic still, unless you're running max HP, max defense. But being completely immune, even if you only took like 30% from it, for example, you're still being completely immune. So it's still a great asset to have nonetheless, just to completely block First Impression, especially because nothing is immune to Bug besides Shedinja. So it's pretty cool to have that ability to be able to be immune to that. It's pretty cool actually. So that's awesome. All right. As for Serene Grace, the Dazzling also, of course, makes you immune to. I mean, every Pokemon has priority moves. However, the AI does not use priority that often. Reason being, the AI doesn't fucking know when to use it. They don't know when to click it. If you're low HP, they will not always click the priority move to finish you off. It's weird. The AI fucking sucks when it comes to priority. The only time I'll ever give AI priority is if it's boosted by an ability, or if it's like a powerful priority move like 55 plus base power, or extreme speed 80 base power, that type of thing. But like, not to mention, like, you're still immune to a bunch of priority moves. You can see all of those priority moves. Oh, actually, I probably should link Dazzling. Yeah, let me actually make a note of myself. Link Dazzling to priority moves on doc. I'll do that. I have little hot links for ability functions and stuff. If there's a bunch of new moves that are affected, I could also do Serene Grace one day. I might make a guide for that because there's so many options with Serene Grace, but it would take me a while. So back on topic, Dazzling, great ability. Okay, swap it on for certain situations. It's just a nice ability to have. As for Serene Grace, this is the real, really impressive ability here. Not that Dazzling is bad; it's a good ability. Serene Grace is really cool because you have so many new moves. So I'm gonna try to categorize these into different sections. Okay, you have moves that flinch. You have moves that boost your own stats. You have moves that always drop the opponent's stats with Serene Grace, and then you have everything else. All right, those are the 3 tiers I'm going to list these into. So flinch moves with Serene Grace. Hoodwink is fairy type Iron Head. You have Iron Head itself, and then you have Wave Crash, which is 125 base power, recoil move, blah, 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 blah. Okay, all 3 of those have a 60% flinch rate with Serene Grace, and you have 81 base speed. You could run a Scarf, you could run Dragon Dance, and you can actually really start to flinch the shit out of people. You could also run Serene Grace Dragon Pulse, which now has a 60% chance to paralyze. Oh, I added another category, status, excuse me. Status is a big category. I'll talk about status next. So Dragon Pulse, 100 base power, 60% chance to paralyze with Serene Grace. That's great. You can use that in conjunction with stuff like Hoodwink or Wave Crash to, be annoying if you wanted to. Not the most reliable thing, but it's still good. I mean, shit, you could just win entire battles by using that if you wanted to, and be scummy and use recover and just not even give a shit about how much damage you're doing, run max bulk, that kind of thing. Scummy, but you could totally do that if you wanted to. So that's flinching moves. Okay, that's another reason why physical sets are actually pretty good, because you don't have any special moves that can flinch, but you have tons of physical ones that can, and good ones at that. You have dual stab and then you have coverage, so it's pretty cool. Then you have status. So status, I already covered Dragon Pulse. You have Ice Beam, of course, for that 20% freeze, bullshit, cheese, same with Blizzard. But impressively, you have Scald. All right, Scald is huge with Serene Grace. That's a 60% chance to burn, 75 base power move, very reliable way to burn. Obviously, with your bulk, you can just recover and Scald and spread burns across the team. Obviously, this is not 6v6 competitive singles. Otherwise, it would be fucking stupid, because Scald's already stupid, let alone with Serene Grace. But in game, the AI isn't switching out, so the status is not as debilitating as it would be in 6v6 singles. Not to mention, even sleep is reworked to be consistent and only last 2 turns now. So all that kind of stuff. Status is just not nearly as good as it is in competitive. Like, if you toxic something that's only toxicing it for as long as it's on the field, they don't switch out and switch back in later, unless they parting shut it out or something, or you have an eject button or something. Situational. Okay, status is still good though. You can still Scald a physical bond and get that 60% chance to burn. Okay, good option. And then of course Dragon Pulse is there, Ice Beam, Blizzard. That's a bit of a status. Okay, now for the stat boosting options. So Water Pledge, Signal Beam, and Dazzling Gleam are both 80, or all 3 of those are 80 base power moves that have a 25% chance to boost your special attack stat normally. So with Serene Grace, that becomes 50%. So you have, it's basically like Fiery Dance. It essentially becomes vanilla Fiery Dance. Obviously, Fiery Dance is buffed in this, and it's whatever. But in vanilla, it's just Fiery Dance. But it's good because, yeah. What am I trying to say here? It's Fiery Dance, and you can. Jesus, what am I trying to say? It's you have dual stab there. Okay, so Water Pledge, Dazzling Gleam is great, and then Signal Beam is for coverage. Okay. And it actually has pretty solid coverage now, especially because of the bug type offensive buffs. So pretty cool, actually, very cool. Hit stuff like grass or whatever that you resist your water stab. So that's great, great moves right there. Other boosting options, you have incredibly powerful boosting options like Water Pulse and Torrential Pulse with Serene Grace. Both of those moves have a 30% chance, almost a 1 in 3 chance to boost all of your stats by 1. It's pretty fucking stupid, very unreliable. I don't like those moves at all, but I think that there is a place for them to exist, and so I'm fine with them existing. So that's really strong for sure. So that's the stat boosting options, I think. At the minute, I don't think there's any more. Yeah, obviously you of course have Dragon Dance, Calm Mind, and Coil as well, and also Z moves like Z Soak gives you +2 special attack, etc., etc. But that's it for Serene Grace boosting moves. Last two tiers are stat dropping moves. I'm going to talk about the guaranteed ones first. So guaranteed stat drops. Iron Tail, 110 base power, 90% accurate, always drops defense. With Serene Grace, of course, normally it's a 50% chance, which is still great. Oh, Aqua Tail also flinches, excuse me. So Aqua Tail and Wave Crash are both flinch options, excuse me. Forgot about Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail being 100 base power, 95% accurate, which is, in my opinion, not worth over. Actually, it depends on what you want. Wave Crash is cool because you can heal off and you have a good HP stat. But anyway, Play Rough has a 100% chance to drop attack with Serene Grace, and that's a 110 base power recoil move, physical, obviously. And that's great. That's a great physical fairy option. You can use that to, you don't even need to run attack investment. You can just use Play Rough to debuff the opponent. You also have Aurora Beam, which is a normal, like, that always drops both offensive stats by 1 no matter what. Without Serene Grace, even, that's just a good option to have on a bulky Pokemon like this. It is 20 base power weaker than Ice Beam, however, you do have that guaranteed drop to both attack and special attack, so it's a good move. For in-game purposes, of course. So that's awesome. That's guaranteed stat dropping moves, and then you have a couple moves that have very high chances to drop stats. So for example, Moonblast has that 60% chance to drop special attack. Aura Sphere, Psychic, Focus Blast have 50 to 60% chances to drop Spadef, and then Power Whip, I believe, has a 60% chance to drop defense or something like that with Serene Grace, something like that. It's 25 or 30% normally, so maybe even 20. I don't remember the exact percentages for some of those moves. It doesn't matter though. It's definitely above 20, that's for sure, which is at least 40. So 40 to 60%, depending on what it is exactly. To check right now, doesn't really matter too much. Not that consistent. I wouldn't really use those for that intention. However, something like Play Rough and Iron Tail is very consistent in terms of dropping stats. Moonblast is also a good 60% chance as well. So those are all great stat dropping moves. So that's great. That's all the Serene Grace stuff. Serene Grace stuff. I know it took a while, but there's plenty of. There's probably a couple other things I'm missing, honestly. Yeah, actually, Weather Ball is a 90 base power move, so it is 10 base power weaker than it normally is. However, basically every special attacker can learn it, and it has a 50% chance to drop Spadef. So with Serene Grace, that's a 100% chance. So in the rain, for example, Milotic has a 100% Spadef dropping Water Stab, or if you're running it in Sun, or running it in, if you have a Sun team and you happen to have Milotic that you need to switch in on something to get a fire move off, you have Weather Ball there. You also have Ice Weather Ball and Rock Weather Ball, so that's all really cool. Not to mention, Weather is a lot better in this hack, even with self-setting without the abilities, because the rocks give you 10 turns now instead of 8, so that's pretty cool. Or 11 turns actually, technically, instead of 8. So it's 10 instead of 7, basically, because if you're using it yourself, you're burning a turn. But yeah, I think I got everything covered here. Other utility stuff, so of course, Tickle's great. Tickle plus Recover is really useful. Haze is really nice for, phasing Pokemon. Dragon Tail as well. Dragon Tail is 90 base power and is 100% accurate now. I actually cannot miss at all, which is great with Hustle and stuff, but that's not relevant here. So both of those are good phasing options. Yeah. No, that's about it actually. Hypnosis is pretty cool. You got a lot of nice options here. I'm not the biggest fan of Milotic. I think it's a cool Pokemon. I think it's pretty. It's like weirdly boring for me, but that's I definitely didn't skimp on the buffs here though, obviously. I mean, it's an incredible Pokemon, as it should be. I mean, it's like a weird almost. The reason I thought 600 base total fits, by the way, is for similar reason. It's like Magikarp and Feebas, and then you go into Gyarados, and Gyarados had the same base total before, so why not Milotic as well? I again wanted lower base total, but I think this works actually, because again, you are wasting. I wouldn't say wasting, but like it's not as OP as you might think, just because the base total seems high, just because speed and attack are like middling. Like for example, if I gave it 60 speed to 60 attack, its base total will be like 540, which is actually the same as it was in vanilla. So yeah, you guys get the idea though. I think I covered everything here. Hopefully this video didn't drag on too long. Hopefully I explained everything thoroughly for you. Again, if you like this type of content, longer form content, make sure you definitely subscribe. If you listen this far, you should be already. Again, link in the description down below for all of these changes. I definitely recommend giving that a look. Favorite it, bookmark it, whatever you want to do. Check it out whenever you feel like it, if that interests you, of course. And I think I'll leave it off there. Thank you very much for listening, everybody, and goodbye.